the line is not straight. In my work, the lines are always straight. For me, what I try to do is to photograph buildings and spaces in the best way that represents them. Because the buildings look like that, they look straight, they were built straight, and I would like to photograph them straight. When landscape and architectural photographers talk about vantage points, what we mean is a location from which we can photograph what we need to photograph. So it can be a tall building, or it can be several floors higher than what we need in order to get a bird's eye view. So in this case, if we look over here, the vantage point that I've got is one that is directly across from the block that I'm photographing from, so that I can keep my camera straight and to shoot it so the lines are still straight and you can get the other side properly photographed. I grew up in Queenstown, a group of blocks called the Chap Lak Lau, which is a 16-floor, 16-story HDB blocks at Commonwealth Close. I have all these memories from that place that I can never recreate again. And that's probably why I keep coming back here to photograph. Because I have these memories of the place that are etched in my head. I just want to photograph as much of it before it changes even more. I have a young son. He's 3.5 years old this year, and he's not old enough to know our old buildings and old spaces. And that is part of the reason why I am photographing all these places. When he's older, at least he will have these photographs to look at. And I can tell him stories about daddy's old playgrounds and daddy's old childhood, which is why I go around photographing so obsessively, because what I photograph today is the present. In 50 years' time, it's going to be the past. When I exhibit these photos or I put them online and people come to me and say, hey, I used to live there, or I grew up there, it makes me very happy and very proud that I have managed to actually photograph these buildings and keep a slice of personal history of the people that have lived there. We are still losing old buildings very quickly. Old buildings are still getting torn down. New buildings are still being built at a pace that is unheard of anywhere else in the world. It's funny because looking back, there are all these buildings that I could have photographed that were still standing 20 years ago, which are not standing now. And I was already taking pictures back then, but not this kind of pictures. If I had a chance to go back in time to meet my younger self, I would have one very simple message for myself. Start photographing buildings first. One of the unintended consequences of shooting while you were sleeping is that it brings me to dark, quiet, empty spaces. When I come here alone, there's only me and the camera, and the exposures are very long, so I get a lot of time to myself. When the camera is exposing, it's very quiet. And then you get to listen to the sounds of the crickets. In the distance, far, far away, you can still hear a little bit of civilization, a bit of cars rumbling. In 2002, I drove around in the middle of the night and I would find quiet, empty spaces in Singapore that were really dark, and I would photograph on a film camera long exposures that could last up to 20-30 minutes. And the result was this project called While You Were Sleeping, where the only aim of the project was to find these unfamiliar spaces in Singapore at night and to photograph them. It's the 12th anniversary this year and the 10th anniversary of the exhibition, so I'm redoing the project not at the same spots, but also seeking out quiet, empty, dark spaces in Singapore. And 12 years on, I found that it's really hard to find these spaces, mainly because most of them have been developed, many of them have disappeared, they are gone. And in many of the places that I photographed, there are now new HDB flats. So that's the reality of living in Singapore, where things change so quickly. That's why I need to do what I do, to go and photograph all these places before they change so much that nobody remembers what they look like.